brilliant and bright Tuesday, and we're up sprightly and early to bring you your perfect day starter, the morning brief on Channels Television. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka, and I have my dependable men in the house. And guess what? Of course, your guess is as good as mine. Someone is back from Kenya. Hello, guys. Good morning.
Thank you so much for welcoming us. Let me not take that. Let me leave it to Kayode. He has to say something. You've been after it for 2 days.
I have. It's been like the longest 2 days of my life, really.
Right.
I know it's just 2 hours difference. So I keep checking. The morning brief, and you know, it's a mental thing. Your body, your mind is on the morning brief.
Has been conditioned.
You know, so it's like, I'm prepping for the morning brief. I'm like, no, it's not the morning brief. It's something else entirely. But, I mean, what they say is Karibu Sana. That's like welcome or
that's Swahili.
Yeah, so you say Asante Sana, which is thank you very much. So Karibu Sana, at least for today, as I wean myself off Kenya. It's good to be back, really. I've missed my team so much. 2 days.
We missed you too, man.
Exactly. Thank you.
We missed you too. Thank you.
Missed you too.
For all you represented. Okay, we saw your report and all of that AI and election management, and we hope the elections, well, one is down already.
Yeah.
Expectedly, he won the election. I mean, Vladimir Putin, fifth sem. No surprises.
At all.
Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Now, let's get back to that conversation again about election.
Oh, yes.
What can we learn from Kenya in terms of election management?
A lot, really, a lot. First, it's impressive that Africa has taken the lead. It's not, okay, you do your thing, and after 5 years, we catch on to this. So this is Africa saying, we're no more trying to play catch-up. Okay, we're setting the tone. And I think one of the biggest things is the fact that Africa obviously is still big on elections. Nigeria is one of those nations championing artificial intelligence with elections. Again, that is a big debate back here in Nigeria, especially because we have Odo and Edo, which would be a major test. INEC says they would use artificial intelligence. But at the surface, it's about elections. But deep down, it's about the governance of a technology itself, right? Because it's inevitable, really. It will be interesting to know that even the big techs are still not sure what the future of AI is.
Exactly.
You get, because things are changing really fast. I mean, today AI can give you some of the best things, and tomorrow it can even go beyond that. So even the big techs are not really quite sure. Yes, they are leading it. So it's important for governments to now step in and say, let us clap with 2 hands. Okay, so it's not just a big tech. So whether it's in Africa or wherever, government needs to understand that this is something we have to help big tech to maneuver, not in the bad ways, obviously, but to make life even much better for the people. And I need to mention that we can't regulate if we don't have some sort of control. Right, so government say we want to regulate, but do you even have the control? Do you know the origin? Do you have the knowledge to know how and the rest? So we need to start small, but start from a place of knowledge and know that it's inevitable, guys.
Well, Kayode, there are so many questions there, but I don't want it to seem as if we're interviewing Kayode.
I'm not a techie.
So maybe we'll reserve those questions for you after the 2-hour package that we have.
Exactly, because what he said is quite instructive. Especially in Nigeria, this is where we work and operate. The government needs to be up to speed to understand how these things work. We saw a former president and his government ban Twitter, and we later realized this was just a knee-jerk. There were explanations. We later found that those explanations were not tenable in many people's views, because we don't still have Twitter offices here. We don't have Twitter paying tax. So what was that all about? So understand the system, and so when you're making deployments in terms of regulation, you'll be doing it from a very informed perspective. Exactly. So I guess that's what this is all about. Bukola, what do we have on the show?
Just before we go, in terms of regulation, there's also need for partnerships. So I wonder what we can learn from Kenya in terms of, all those information technology companies with government in the area of health, in the area of checking corruption in ministries, agencies, departments, with anti-corruption agencies in terms of election management. So those are the questions that you'll be answering after the show.
Question,
all right, so what do we have for you? Quite a lot. For starters, it would seem now that the fear of the release of inflation data by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, is the beginning of wisdom, right? And the outcome is quite telling about the need for that virtue, as headline inflation for the month of February rises to 31.70%, up from 29.90% in January 2024. Food inflation, which is the most keenly watched, climbs to 37.92%. This morning, we're in pursuit for wisdom needed for these challenging times.
So check the prices of things you bought yesterday and find out what it is later today. From there, we will flip the script yet again to security as we zoom into Kaduna State, the northwestern state that has hosted and hosts most of Nigeria's and the country's defense installations, from police to the military, yet has curiously suffered the most attacks and kidnappings in recent times. The latest has been the abduction of 87 persons in the same Kaduna local government area, where 14 persons were kidnapped the day before. We'll take a closer look at Kaduna today and try to understand why this, what is supposed to be like a fortress, is now so susceptible to attacks. The safest place is now in need of safety.
Absolutely. And after all of that hard talk, I mean, it's what we do usually. We soften things a bit. And it will be time to soften the atmosphere with some comedy, really. We could use some laughter, guys. Yeah. So we'll have joining us on the show what or who you can describe as the monarch of comedy in Nigeria's north. Well, he joins us for some light-hearted conversation on how well this genre is thriving amid these challenging times. And he has a very interesting background. It would actually shock you to know that it's not naturally or traditionally from where or what he is projecting now. And that's the beauty of our nation, Nigeria.
Yeah, our diversity.
Absolutely.
You know, across regions and tribe and ethnicity and tongue. Well, what will all of these be without you being part of the show? We welcome your comments, your contributions on all social media platforms. Have you followed us lately? We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on X, at CTV Morning Brief. So start following us and post your comments to all of these big stories. Of course, we also welcome your videos to our WhatsApp number, which is now showing on your screen. Yes, please don't call. You can send in your questions and comments to that number as well as you post your videos to us. So that's all we have for you today, and we'll begin unfolding them, starting with the top stories on the brief this morning, right after this time out. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. So welcome back to the program now. We're counting one abduction after the other in Kajuru community, Kaduna, where at least 87 people have been reportedly kidnapped after bandits raided the Kajuru station in Kajuru local government area. The bandits were said to have looted some shops and houses located in the community. According to the chairman of Kajuru Council, Ibrahim Gajeri, the attack occurred on Sunday night, coming a day after 14 people were kidnapped by bandits at Dogonoma community, also in Kajuru local government area. However, the Chief of Defense Staff has again pledged that security operatives will ensure the rescue of the kidnapped victims. General Christopher Musa gave this assurance when he paid a visit to Governor Ubasani of Kaduna in the wake of the latest abduction in Kajuru.
The troops are already moving to check out what's really going on there. But we just want to assure the citizens that, sometimes terrible things do happen, but these are things that will make us stronger. And what we require is that all Nigerians should put hands together, support the military and other security forces. We are working tirelessly to ensure that we stop these acts of criminality. Abduction, as we know, is a social activity. People are doing it for their own sake. Some are doing it to bring down the government, to make the government look weak. But we guarantee that this will end. We are doing everything possible to ensure that we achieve success, and we will achieve success. Why particular area, and why Kaduna? Why Nigeria? So it's on a broader front. We're looking at all the possible options, why these things are happening. But as we're doing that, we're also trying to stop it, to make sure that it does. But what we require is for Nigerians to give us support. Most times when we get information, it comes in a bit late. Before we react to get there, it is late. But we're happy with the way people are responding. You can see from what happened in Delta State how Nigerians are responding. Everybody supporting the armed forces and the security forces. That is what will ginger the troops to continue to do more. But we assure them that we have given our lives for the sake of this country.
Well, we hope that those guarantees stand strong and produce results in the return of all kidnapped persons. Meanwhile, the Defense Headquarters says 17 military personnel were killed in Okwama community in Bomadi local government area of Delta State last week, as against 16 earlier announced. According to a release by the Director, Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur Gusso, the personnel consist of 1 lieutenant colonel, 2 majors, 1 captain, and 12 soldiers. They are the commanding officer, 181 Amphibious Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel A. Ali, Major S.D. Shafa, Major D.O.B. Captain U. Zakari, and Sergeant Yahya Seidu. The others are Corporals Yahya Dambaba, Kabiru Bashir, Lance Corporal Bulus Haruna, So Okpayemi, Bello Amos, Haman Peter, Ibrahim Abdullahi, Private Alhaji Isa Clement Francis, Abubakar Ali, Ibrahim Adamu, and Adamu Ibrahim. The officers and soldiers were killed in Okwama community on March the 14th while on a peace mission to the area, an incident that has sparked outrage across the land. And staying with killings in Okwama Delta State, human rights lawyer Mr. Femi Falano has condemned the attack on the military in Okwama community. Speaking on Channels Television Sunrise Daily, the senior advocate of Nigeria called for investigation into the deadly act. He, however, cautions the army against succumbing to mob justice technique in fishing out the perpetrators, but to treat the case with utmost professionalism.
On the night of the 16th, angry soldiers stormed Okwama village and set it on fire. For me, it is avoidable. And you see, you can't blame soldiers alone. There is a general position in the society whereby, because of loss of confidence in the judicial system, everybody, embraces mob justice. Even the statement of the president yesterday, we are in a civilian, a democratic system of government. The president cannot order military authorities to fish out civilians involved in a heinous crime. That is the duty of the police. In this case, it was reported by the chief of defense staff. Since I read that on Saturday, General Christopher Musa, that some arrests have been made. So what I expected the authorities in Delta State to do on that day was to have these suspects transferred to the police so that on Monday morning, this morning, they will be charged before the court. And a statement ought to have been made. We have arrested the criminal elements. We are going to have them arraigned in court on Monday. At least that will go a long way to douse the tension that was allowed to mount, culminating, unfortunately, in the attack on Okwama village. We saw this in Zakibia. We saw this in Odi. We saw it in Baramotu. And when people went to court, nobody was talking of those who were killed. Nobody was looking for the criminals that killed. It was like a question of those who were made victims through collective punishment, which is not part of our law.
And now, away from the Delta killings, the Federal Capital Territory Administration, in collaboration with the FCT Police, have embarked on the clearance of routes said to be used for escape by kidnappers in the nation's capital. Speaking at one of the sites at the Akwo Resettlement area of Abuja, the Secretary, Command and Control Center of the FCTA, Mr. Peter Olumuji, explains that the trees provide cover for kidnappers from where they escape into Nasarawa State.
City Police Command in recent time have recorded a lot of successes by rescuing most of these kidnapped victims. And from what they've gathered so far, they realize that this particular route, if it's not taken care of, can still be a safe haven and escape route for the kidnappers. And that is why the FCT Police Command, like you've seen, they've deployed massively here in conjunction with the FCT administration to ensuring that these streets, which serve as safe haven for these kidnappers whenever they kidnap their victim, is removed.
More from Delta States now. Motorcycle riders took over major roads and markets in Asaba, the state capital, and Okayama in Oshimili North local government area of the state to protest the death of two of their colleagues on Sunday night. Businesses around the popular midwifery market in Okpanam and the Delta State Post-Primary Education Board along Sunis Road were also attacked by the protesters. According to the state police spokesperson, Mr. Bright Edafi, the motorcycle riders were protesting the death of their colleagues during an enforcement operation by the state task force. Security personnel were later drafted in to bring the situation under control. It seems one protest after another as another was recorded in the south, this time in Ogun State, where many people were reportedly injured following a clash between members of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, NURTW, and the Ogun State Parks Management, OGSPAM, in Abeokuta, the state capital. It was gathered that trouble started when the State Commissioner for Transportation, Mr. Dariya, directed the leadership of the State Parks Management to stop the sale of revenue tickets while the NURTW was ordered to take over. This was said not to have gone down well with members of the parks management who stormed various parks with dangerous weapons. The Commissioner of Police in the state, Mr. Abiodun Alamutu, has however said the situation has been brought under control and debunked claims in some quarters that lives were lost in the fracas. And the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kayode Egbetokun, is again reaffirming the commitment of the Nigeria Police Force to assist family members of dead officers through regular payment of their entitlements. Speaking in Abuja shortly before presenting checks to family members of 727 officers who lost their lives while in service, Mr. Egbetokun says the exercise is aimed at motivating serving personnel to put in their best at all times.
Today's ceremony stands as a poignant testament to the unwavering dedication of the current police leadership towards the welfare of the families of our fallen colleagues. It serves as a solemn pledge to all serving personnel that neither the nation nor the force will abandon them. Today, we are poised to distribute checks across 5 distinct categories, reflecting our diverse commitment to the beneficiaries. The first category comprises checks amounting to 55,763,040 naira, 95 kobo for 311 beneficiaries. This represents the remaining 5% balance of the group life assurance policy state payments for batches 9 and 10 and 2021 to 2022 insurance year. The second category includes checks totaling 761,497,696 naira 19 kobo for 178 beneficiaries. These are 90% of the group life assurance policy payments, batches 15 and 17 for the 2021 to 2022 insurance year.
And now to education. The Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities have begun a 7-day warning strike over what the unions describe as unfair treatment and disparity in the payment of withheld salaries by the federal government. Channels Television monitored the compliance level in some parts of the country following the commencement of the strike yesterday. And some cheering news for a change from the sports scene as the Falconets of Nigeria are through to the final of the women's football event at the 13th Africa Games in Accra, Ghana. The national under-20 women's team, who are the defending champions, beat Uganda under-20 women's team 2-0 to advance to Friday's final. Substitutes Adobe Oka and Chiamaka Okuchukwu got both goals in the 74th and 80th minutes of the second half to ensure Nigeria will finish on the medal zone in the women's football event. And outside our shores, the United States has denounced Russia's election as undemocratic and chosen not to congratulate President Vladimir Putin, who was declared winner by a sweeping margin. Responding to questions on Putin's re-election, State Department spokesman Vedant Patel responded sarcastically. In her words, "I was on the edge of my seat. It was such a nail-biter." Patel described the conduct of the polls as an incredibly undemocratic process. Asked if the United States was withholding recognition of the result, as urged by some dissidents, Patel said, "I think it is safe to say that there certainly won't be congratulatory messages coming from the United States of America." And so what are some of your reactions to these big stories? We'll start reviewing them now as Kayode joins me. Hi, Kayode.
Oh, goodness me. Don't say it. I know a lot of people are saying, can't the women play the men's game too so that they can keep winning for, the Super Eagles? It's cheering to see what's happening with women games at the Africa Games. And I think on the flip side is what's playing out between Russia and America. I think it would be shocking if America were to commend Russia for election. So let's take a look at what you are saying, really, about the top stories that we have this morning. And naturally, one of the biggest trends, which has gotten a lot of Nigerians talking, is the kidnapping, yet again, in Kajuru. For a lot of people, they thought it was still the same event. This is the same 14 that were kidnapped, but no, it's a different one. Same area, but different kidnapping all entirely. So let's take a look at what people are saying about this one. Adekunle Adelaja on X, and this is essentially what Adekunle Adelaja is saying, that Kaduna is supposed to be a military powerhouse of Nigeria, and ends by saying, let the international community fish them out by any means. But I imagine that you're saying that, well, Nigeria's military should be on top of this as well. And he's asking, are there any excuses why the military can't stamp the authority?
Well, this one is from Nolly FX, and, he or she pretty much speaks the minds of many Nigerians. And here's his thought. But wait, that's the Nigerian way of speaking. It's as if kidnapping has been normalized in Nigeria. Like nobody talks about it. It's no longer a big deal. I'm even beginning to wonder if it is actually happening or just fabricated. Well, Nolly FX, it certainly is not fabricated. It happened. And if you caught up with our conversation with the governor of the state yesterday, you'll know that indeed there are huge concerns in terms of security in that state and indeed in other parts of Nigeria's northwest.
Absolutely, Bukola. And this sentiment sort of trickles down, or at least it cuts across a lot of comments that we have for you on this one today. But while you keep your comments coming in regarding this incident in Kaduna State, another major issue that has gotten a lot of attention is Binance. And this is running into weeks now. Recall the executive of Binance that came visiting, the reported detention, and of course the moves by the federal government. Now we understand that the court has ordered Binance to release data of Nigerian users to EFCC, and that has gotten a lot of reactions. You see this one, Cool King 01 on X, saying that this is a very good development.
And this one is
says,
yeah.
And just you could see the rest that he says there. I think he's trying to say that hope the House members and politicians will not lobby to scuttle this move.
Well, this one is from The Godfather, and just one line from The Godfather, and he says, "This will never happen. The secrecy on banking forbids it." Well, I wonder if there's an exception in this regard that compels that practitioner in the finance space to provide information to aid an investigation that is critical to the smooth working of the economy. But suffice it to say at this point that if Binance should be able to comply, well, other ministries, departments, and agencies should also comply with the FOI Act by providing journalists with information when they need it for investigation.
Simple as that, right?
Yeah, simple as that.
I'm really curious about the secrecy of banking, which the Godfather talks about. Because if you bank in Nigeria, you do know that your details can be called up anytime there's a need for it. Yes, there needs to be a court order for some of these things, but I don't think there's secrecy to that extent, especially, I mean, it's government, guys, but things should be done the right way. That's the point. I mean, the law should be followed to the letter. So we expect to hear from you on that one as well. Let's talk about the Sokoto market fire.
Starting with Aliyu Kasim, and he has just 2 lines for us. And he says, I hope the authorities are able to quickly respond and ensure the safety of everyone involved. Indeed, that is the expectation.
There's been lots of market fires of late. And you could talk about Abuja and other parts of the country. And I imagine that's why Desmoye says millions of naira going into the atmosphere just like that. We God help those affected. I know there were some recommendations after the market fire in Abuja. And I think that it's important for markets to now review, their what I call it, operational guidelines or the emergency response, or basically provisions for when or if there is a fire. Don't say it will never happen. We always say that I reject it, but you need to be prepared. So your fire extinguishers from the stores and the rest.
Which speaks to the compliance work being put in place by the task force in Lagos State to ensure that traders comply with regulations, particularly on Lagos Island, where there usually is a concern about fire.
Indeed.
Or even about building collapses. On to another theme. This time around, you're talking to us about the release of names of the soldiers who were sadly killed while they went on a peace mission in Delta State. And the first one is from Imarok, and they say, rest in peace, brave officers. May your family find comfort and solace during this difficult time. And may those responsible for your death be brought to justice and face the consequences of their actions. Your lives were cut short, but your memory will live on. And we have the pictures of the gallant officers on display here. That's CPL Kabiru Bashir, Bulus Haruna, Shole Opeyemi, and you have the rest of them. Really sad, and I hope this comes, after the proper notification of the family members. I really do hope that the family members are not getting to learn about the deaths of these gallant officers on television.
Well, that's standard practice, and you expect that the military will, of course, follow through with that. And I think the big question on the minds of a lot of Nigerians, which I imagine is this one from Verified Homie, says, who killed them and why were they killed? These are the questions Nigerians must ask the government. I know there's lots of theories out there. There's lots of theories, and I can tell you for a fact that it just shows how vested or invested Nigerians are in our security agencies. I mean, we need them. They need us as well. So when things like this happen, we need to stand by them and ensure the right thing is done on both ends. So while we wait, we say rest in peace.
Rest in peace, and indeed we hope that more will be done to ensure the welfare and the safety of the men who we hope are supposed to be keeping us safe. Speaking of which, that will form part of the conversation today as we begin to unfold some of what we have for you. But this time around, starting with the economy. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
remember that when you look at the difference between food inflation sub-index and headline inflation, even though there's a distance, substantial distance of our 7%, there is a component that is common to two of them, which is imported processed food. Processed food is in both of them. So if you want to take them out, you have to look at how monetary policy can affect exchange rate. Then we'll move to the fourth one. The fourth one is domestic demand pool inflation, which we said is not the case. But there is a foreign cost demand pool inflation, which is caused by, and I want you to listen carefully to this. This is caused by the 100 million Francophone citizens surrounding Nigeria that are important because of the price differential. They have a low interest inflation rate of about 2% on the average. They have a constant currency, price fixed because they are linked to euro. And the French government is burning 80% of their reserves to maintain that value of that currency. It's an artificial value. And that's been going on for over 10 years. You have them fixed. Now, what it means is that about 9 years ago, 8 years ago, 1 naira was buying 3 francs CFA, which is fixed. Today, because of our devaluations and all of that, we can only buy 0.8, 0.7, 0.8. We can't even buy 1 CFA. So if you're looking at them getting our food from our country, our money is devalued about 80%.
Welcome back. Besides insecurity, the economy is also a big issue in Nigeria. That's why we have an expert to unpack for us what exactly is going on. He's the CEO, GDL Financial Services, Mr. Kola Ayeye, joins us via Zoom. Mr. Ayeye, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Some have said Nigeria economy defies economic logic. I don't know what because the diagnosis as well as the solution being proffered by either monetary policies authority or the fiscal authority seem not to be achieving the desired result, at least in the short term. So does it really defy global economic logic? That's on one hand. On the other hand, with the numbers increasing in terms of food and headline inflation, are worse days still ahead of us?
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think the Nigerian economy defies economic logic. I think that the Nigerian economy, to a very large extent, follows economic logic. However, when we are not in equilibrium, because what is happening now is that the economy is in disequilibrium, and the steps that are taken is going to take some time before it achieves equilibrium. That is, if those steps are accurate and if they're properly executed. But I honestly don't think it is correct or accurate to say that the Nigerian economy defies economic logic. No, I think that economic policies work substantially in Nigeria. The only things that are a big concern, which we have to deal with, is that there are human-made distortions. And those distortions or interventions, if they happen in other countries, they will have the same effect. So, for example, if we have a lot of corruption, if we have a lot of leakages, those leakages are not factored into normal economic models. If there was that much leakage in other economies, it will have the same effect. But if all other things are done normally, I think the Nigerian economy follows the rules.
The second part of my question was, with the increasing number in terms of headline inflation, I also mentioned the food inflation, which is racing towards 40%, 37% at the moment. Some have said this has peaked. Some are saying the worst days are ahead of us. You're the expert. Tell us so that we prepare ourselves and lower our expectation if need be.
I think, to be very fair, nobody has a crystal ball, but I think we need to back up a bit. Government must own not only its strategy, but its tactics. And sometimes when we get strategy right, but miss tactics, we should be humble enough to admit it. Removal of oil subsidy was the right thing to do. Closing the exchange rate gap was the right thing to do. So strategically, those were the correct things to do. But tactically, did we get it right? No. On the day the president announced that exchange rate was gone, there ought to have been plans on what to do to contain inflation. Please, let me make this point carefully. Classical economists tell us that a currency will continue to devalue roughly by a measure of the difference between the inflation rates in two countries. So if the dollar devalues by 2 to 3%, it inflates by 2 to 3%, if the economy inflates by 2 to 3%, and we have a 30% inflation, what classical economists will tell us is that our currency will need to devalue by about 27%. What does it say? It means that whenever you are taking any measures, you need to look at what its impact will be on inflation and proactively try to prevent inflation. So, for example, when we remove oil subsidy, it was also incumbent on us. It wasn't rocket science to know that it was going to affect transport costs. And then for us to have decided to deal with something like the cost of transportation of food, we didn't need to look at that after the event. And even up till now, I do not see sufficient measures being taken to contain the cost of transportation of food. A friend of mine, the driver went home for Christmas at Benue, and he came back to Lagos lamenting that even with all of the insecurity in Benue, that the differential between the cost of yam in Benue and Lagos was so huge, and he just wish he could bring some yam to Lagos. So these are the things that could be done, that were not done, and if they are being done now, they are not being done enough, and they need to be done better. So, but in terms of where is inflation going, the good thing is the last set of measures that the CBN has taken, some of us don't like high interest rates and still don't like it, but it appears to have tempered the galloping devaluation of the naira. We hope, as CBN has said, that they are starting to see foreign portfolio investments and that can stabilize the currency. If we have sufficient inflow of foreign portfolio investment and it stabilizes the currency, then maybe the worst is behind us. But if we do not, one has not seen the statistics yet, if we do not, because we need supply of foreign currency, the main reason, the main driver of inflation in Nigeria is the devaluation of the currency, and we need supply of foreign currency. If we have sufficient supply, then there will be stability. I am not sure that we have that sufficient supply yet. So my guess will be that it's getting better. The worst days are behind us, but it's not yet Uhuru. I think we are still going to see some inflation for some time. Not at the rate at which you were saying before. That would be my judgment.
Well, help us to simplify it, sir. I want to understand, and perhaps Nigerians also seek to understand, what the immediate triggers of this latest round of increase is for the month of February. And this is the reason I ask this question, because reforms are ongoing in the financial service sector, and the CBN recorded inflows just last month to the tune of, I think, $1.8 billion. And besides that, there hasn't been any significant increase officially of the pump price of petrol, although we see that there are minimal increases here and there. And in some states at the subnational level, we also see some interventions in the provision of palliative programs for households. So what are the immediate triggers, if we're having all of these reforms, what are the immediate triggers for this latest round of increase in inflation figures? Shouldn't we be seeing a minimal decrease, however minimal?
No, I think it will be somewhat optimistic to expect an immediate decrease. I mean, if you just cast your mind back 4, 5, 6 weeks, the free market rate of the naira was approaching 1,800. There was panic all around, and that nobody knew where it was going to rest. Then the CBN measures came, and I think right now, for a few weeks, if my information serves me right, it's been hovering between 1,500 and 1,600. Now, you know, some things, there are lags. Things like food costs. Before the stabilization of prices, stabilization of exchange rates, before it flows through the cost, there is a lag. I don't think, so we shouldn't expect that immediately we see an exchange rate that was at 1,800 threatening to go to 2,000. And people were saying, where is this going to stop? Stabilize at 1,500, 1,600. That trigger that you have seen, it does not immediately act as a restraint on cost. I'll say you give it 90, 120 days. The other thing you should know is that when people who are selling goods have inventories which reflect historical costs and historical exchange rates, to the extent to which nobody wants to sell at a loss, except if the set of goods that have been imported or that have come from the hinterlands have arrived at new costs, and they have no choice than they take a loss. It's only then they will take a loss. Otherwise, everybody will offload the old inventories at the old cost until new inventories come in, and they will sell at the new cost. So I think that we should expect a 90, 120 day lag for imports. For local products, the lag may be anywhere from 30 to 60 days. So I'll say let's watch another 30 days and see what happens, particularly in terms of local food items. But I think the fact that the exchange rate has stabilized is good. You know, what is still worrisome is we need to see Nigeria needs more than $1.8 billion of inflow over 1 month. We need to see that consistently. You know, what we need to see is that inflow continues to come in and it is sustained. When that is sustained, it changes expectations. As that now, the market is not yet confident that the rates will remain stable, but the market notes that a measure of stability has been attained. So if I'll answer you, I think we need to give it some time, because there are normally lags between when a measure is taken and when it flows in through the transaction processes and through costs.
Well, Mr. Ayer, for those looking at the figures and they remember what the government's projection is, that we're planning to have 21.4% inflation this year, and it's not getting closer to that. If anything, it's getting farther from that, and their projections will even have up to 34% by the end of the quarter. My question is, one of my favorite literary works talks about how, yes, goals are important, right? But we also need to focus on the systems behind those goals that will achieve that goal, or those goals as the case may be. We've seen bad habits over time in Nigeria that have brought us to where we are. So if we need to cultivate what we can describe as good habits, no matter how small they are, what are those good habits we have to cultivate as a government, perhaps as a people as well, if we want to reach that goal? Yes, it's ambitious, but what must we need to do, no matter how small per time, so we can reach those goals?
Okay, you know, when we talk about, if I get to very much parody, what you're saying is, what is going to take us to a situation that is substantially better than where we are at now? And I'll say this. If we continue doing the same things, we're going to get the same results. You know, here are my own concerns. The major objectives of government and of all of us must include two important things. Number one is to reduce poverty. Number two is to significantly expand the middle class. For those things to happen, there must be substantial economic growth. And in order for there to be, and that substantial economic growth must not only happen, it must happen in such a way that the benefits of that growth are widely shared, not narrowly shared. One of the things I think Nigeria needs to do, we need significant inflow of foreign exchange. You know, we need to ask questions such as, how does Nigeria achieve $100 billion over a 24 to 36 month period? Those are the kind of funds we need. And when you ask about specific things that need to be done, I do not have names. But you know one thing I strongly believe? I believe there are 1,000 Nigerians who, after lending Nigeria $25 million each, will at least have $25 million left each. We need to stop burying our head in the sand. And the leaders of this government need to lead from the front and have sessions which are not for creating an opera, which are not for naming and shaming, which are not for asking questions. But in my view, we're in a situation where the richest Nigerians need to bail Nigeria out. And the president commander-in-chief has to find a way to address that leading from the front. Can I repeat again? I'm sure there are at least 1,000 Nigerians who, after lending Nigeria $25 million each, will still have $25 million left as their private resources. And let me say, that's $25 billion. And even 1,000 do that, you can then start to cascade down. I believe that the fundamental reform of Nigeria and the substantial quantum of resources that we need for Nigerians, particularly Nigerians who are wealthy, to have a major stake in the reform of the country. So in terms of funding, rich Nigerians have to step in. Now, beyond funding, we need to start to give some thought to which sectors we give emphasis. I have tremendous respect for the current leadership of the central bank. I think the current leadership of the central bank comes to the table with a lot of credibility, which will serve us very well. However, one of the things I think we need to do is look back and say, 2 decades or so ago, we substantially increased the capital of Nigerian banks. To what extent has that led to the growth of a very diversified real sector? The concept of crowding out is not only government that can crowd out the private sector from borrowing when they take money. One sector can receive so much attention that it can also crowd out other sectors. I fear that I think that we need to look at other sectors which need significant equity, not only the banking sector. And if we identify those sectors, it's possible to be able to stimulate equity to move into those sectors, rather than putting more equity in the banking sector again. That's not to say that there won't be a few banks that will need that. But let's meet today. Let's meet to say, where is equity most needed in Nigeria? I think equity is most needed in infrastructure. I think equity is much more needed by the disco. Equity is needed to create the GENCOs and other private sector leadership. Equity is needed to make the Nigerian transmission company private. Nigerian and British companies at 5 billion of equity. So we need to look at what we are doing in a way that we identify the sectors that we want to grow. What stops us also from making the ERP sector, the exploration in the sector? What makes us create models that will transfer the leadership and ownership of that sector to private sector? And I'm not talking only of marginal fields. I'm even talking about deep offshore. There are those pockets of funds that reside among Nigerians. The hard work is to create the framework that will do it. And because there is a finite amount of money available, if, for example, there is theoretically, if, just giving an example, if there's just 100 naira of equity available, if we allocate 80 or 70 to banks, there's only 30 left for the others. So we need to look on the fiscal and on the economic side and say, which sectors do we need to grow? How do we ensure that the allocation of resources for the growth of those sectors, from a top level view, is properly done, and that we're concentrating on things that can create major change.
So I heard your proposal about the 1,000 Nigerians giving $25 million and we'll still have 25 million left. It's quite a novel idea. But sometimes it sounds like a very tall order. I don't know whether the authorities will listen to that. And when you do the comparative analysis of our currency compared to our region, whether it's the Mauritanian rupee or the Egyptian pound, or the Ghana cedi, or the South African rand, or even the CFA. Nigeria's currency is worst performing currency when you compare with all of this, because some has 12 to 19 units of their currency to $1, while ours is over 1,000. Now the monetary policy is saying, look, we need to increase this rate. Some people are saying it's brutal, it's an overkill, so that we can get as much FPI as possible. But what caution do you have as to this drive for FX accretion that may eventually be affecting local production on the other hand? Because when interest rates go high, definitely it's going to affect local manufacturers here.
I have no doubt in my mind that the way to fight inflation, the blunt way to fight inflation is interest. It's not the effective way. The biggest problem for inflation in Nigeria is the exchange rate. It is not the interest rate. Now, when you are left with no option other than high interest rates in order to attract foreign portfolio investment, as has been done, it needs to be acknowledged that this is a crisis measure and it needs to be stopped, brought to a close as quickly as possible. Let me get back to the point I just made. When we say that Nigerian currency is the worst performing currency, one of the reasons why the Nigerian currency is the worst performing currency is that the economy has been managed in such a way that Nigerians do not have confidence in the currency. And if we are in a very drastic problem, we need drastic solutions. And let me tell you this. I'm not proposing that we should confiscate resources. We don't need to do that. And we don't need to make noise about bonds. Bonds can be floated privately. I'm not asking people to donate money to Nigeria. No. I'm saying that we should find a way, the president and commander-in-chief leading from the front, to float private bonds, which Nigerians who have resources will discreetly invest in. Imagine a day that the CBN governor comes and says that we have arranged a private bond, and in the last 4 months, we have raised $25 billion. We have enough money to pay for Nigeria's imports over the next 6 months, and we cleared 75% of our arrears. That's what we need. I honestly think that before we throw things from the window, that they are not practical, we need to look at death rate our situation is. And let me repeat again. This is not about embarrassing people. This is not about asking questions. And this is not even about taking money on which we don't pay. We pay reasonable rates better than they will get elsewhere. But it is my view that a compelling, if not low, but reachable hanging fruit for significant inflow of funds is the commander-in-chief and the president and the leading lights of this government deciding that we must find a way for the richest Nigerians to invest, not dash, to invest in the funding we need for the stabilization and the transformation of the economy. I strongly believe it. It's not a walk in the park, but if we don't do things differently, we don't know whether we can get different results. So, this, before I stop, just to add a point to what you said, the objective must not only be stability, but growth. When we stabilize the economy with high interest rates, foreign portfolio investment money, we succeed with one objective, and we need to succeed with that, which is stabilization. Then you now ask yourself, what kind of growth are we going to achieve? 2, 3, 4% in an economy that needs 2 times that. That's the other point. You see, this thing we start is indeed already stabilizing the saving, and if it continues, it will stabilize the economy. But at this rate, as you said, what happens to manufacturing? What happens to the real sector? And when you translate that, what you say, that happens to growth. We need growth. Don't appeal to the press. We don't do this in a way that we sensationalize it. No, it's not sensationalism. We need to start to say that where we are, it is the biggest, the richest, the most successful Nigerians, the entrepreneurs who have understood how Nigeria works, and so significant force that need to invest in our transformation. It's something we need to do the conversation. We need to do it discreetly, we need to have it properly done. $75 billion from Nigeria, I think that's it.
We must thank you so much for this. For me, if there's a takeaway in this conversation, is this 1,000 people, rich Nigerians investing $25 million. We can't wait. Well, I don't have that kind of money. Would have put that in the bonds. If it will yield at least, if it will yield at least 15% for me in another 20 years, that will be fine. But I don't think they are going to go as high as that. We must thank you, Mr. Kola, CEO, GDL Financial Services. Your insights were quite apt. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's always a pleasure to be with you, channel. Thank you very much.
Well, if you're one of those $25 million owners and one of those 1,000 Nigerians, maybe start thinking and talking to the government. We'll take this quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears from the economy to talk about that very important issue called security. We need to talk about it. Join us again.
And just like the Chief of Defense Staff just reassured us today, that the armed forces are also trying their best. Other relevant security agencies are also trying their best. I want to also thank the community for the support they have been given to Kaduna State government, particularly the parents of the children. But we will continue to try to partner with the armed forces, other relevant security agencies to ensure the safe return of our children back home by the grace of God. Having said that, I would like to thank the Chief of Defense Staff and his entourage who are here in Kaduna, and also want to say that there are a lot of other measures to ensure that we beat insecurity in Kuriga community, which is, we are getting a lot of support from relevant security agencies as we are speaking. We're receiving
that all-important conversation around security is, of course, what we're turning our attention to next. And joining us to do justice to that is Mr. Agiole Abe, who's a retired Commissioner of Police, former Commissioner of Police, Kaduna State, former Commander, Police Mobile Force, Owerri Imo, Kaduna State, was a former Commandant, Police Mobile Training College in Osun State, and who's worn many caps. Good morning, Mr. Abe. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Morning, Karim. Nice having you around.
I mean, the last time we had this conversation, I didn't know we were going to have you again to talk about another dimension to insecurity in Nigeria. But, I mean, it is what it is. It is where we are right now. And for a lot of Nigerians, there's now skepticism. And I'd like us to begin from that, wondering, it doesn't make sense. With such ease, this time 87 people, first it was 16, previously 287 children, and they do the math and they're like, it doesn't make sense. For some other people, they say it looks like these areas are set up for the kidnappers, the bandits, to really have their day. The school, for example, no fence. So it's like some people have done half of the job and the bandits do the remaining half. So I'd like you to speak to the skepticism that a lot of Nigerians have, wondering, come on, this doesn't make sense. It's as though somebody wants this to happen, and that's why it's happening. I know you get that a lot, as particularly when you were in service. How do you handle such skepticism, particularly from the people who you expect to work with?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Honestly speaking, sometimes people attach emotions to issues. I don't think anyone in his right senses would want such situations to happen. For God's sake, we too are parents. I think when there is a security gap and such incidents do happen, but trying to insinuate that people intentionally want these incidents to happen, I don't subscribe to that, and I don't believe it's true. The issue here is, what did we not do right that these incidents happen? That should be the question. And that should be the question security agencies should be prepared to answer. But saying that it's intentional or created to happen, I don't think it's true.
So how then do we know what is true? Because that's at the heart of this. We can talk about the kidnappings in Kaduna. We can talk about the killing of the military as well. It looks like what we always hear and see at the end of the day is just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a whole huge body underneath. And it's important to have at least most of the cards on the table if you want to build trust with the people. Case in point, the latest one in Kaduna, is this as a result of banditry or the result of the clashes we have seen? What do you expect security agencies and government particularly to be doing in terms of communication and messaging? Do you expect a step-by-step information on the operation? We've seen this in other crimes. You see briefings literally by the hour, sometimes every other hour about, okay, this is where we're at with the kidnapping, our agents are there, and this is what we want to assure you. But that's not what we see here most times.
Yes, the truth is that the citizens have the right to know exactly what is happening within their communities. I think when there's a communication gap between the citizens and the government, people begin to think differently. And the government has a constitutional role to protect these people. And when they do not see element of this protection, I think it begins to create doubt in their minds, and they begin to come up with some theories about what went wrong. And I think when crimes like this keep happening, I think we need to design our security architecture to meet with the current trend of kidnappings or other dangerous crimes that are being perpetrated, especially this issue of kidnappings in school. I think by now we should come up with, the government should come up with policies that should be able to safeguard these children in schools instead of allowing these kidnappers to come in freely and take away these children. I can't imagine the trauma these children will be going through right now, and it's going to live with them for a very long time. So I think we should be thinking of a different approach in managing this crisis.
So, it's difficult not for people to be suspect of what is going on, given the ease of execution. As a matter of fact, if you raise children, I'm sure you've handled a lot of children and handled a lot of people, just managing a kid or two is a lot of work. Then you see the number of children that have been moved, we've still not had them returned. And then the number of women. And what we hear, the narrative we get is, oh, they are moving from one point to the other. It's difficult to believe that that is even possible. It feels like for some people, there is an impenetrable fortress somewhere where they mobilize to, where I don't know whether the government can go there or people can go there, they don't know about it, because mobility, consistent mobility of these hostages or these people that have been abducted, it's difficult to understand how that is successful without the government or the authorities being able to track and check and maybe rescue or release these kids.
Like you rightly said, the government has a responsibility to rescue these kids. But let's take a look at the topography of the area this incident happened, and then what are the response level when these situations occurred. And by the time there's a gap and information do not get to, don't forget that because of the constant threat, some of these police outposts no longer exist. So these areas are porous. They are left without the presence of security personnel that would have reacted immediately. And what are the numbers of these personnel, even if they are there? Most police stations have very few police officers who cannot respond to this type of crime. So I think we should be thinking of situation where we can build strike force bases within these areas to prevent these things from happening. And then I think we must deploy technology to be able to track these people, because to take 200 and something children and move them into the bush, we would need to do better than allowing this kind of crimes to occur. I think citizens actually rightly have the right to start thinking differently, like I said. And I think from all indications, the government intervention, swift intervention, I think should be able to assure citizens that a lot of things are going to be done to rescue these children from the hands of these kidnappers and possibly apprehend them.
So in your view, do you think that these bandits are still moving, or they have a place they all converge, or an area they converge? Because that is the crux of my question. That is the suspicion here. Are they still moving with this number of people? Because they say they keep moving. Are they really still moving, or they are somewhere? Because we've seen people say they see them, want to negotiate with them and all of this kind of talk.
Yes, honestly, from my experience, I don't think the kidnappers would come in a particular area and wait for the security agencies to come after them. They keep relocating, they keep changing locations because they know that agencies are after them. So they will not stay in one place until they are so convinced that they are within an area that it will be very, very difficult to get across to them. Because don't forget, the security agencies have limitations in some of these areas. And these bandits have already studied the topography of this area and know exactly where they are heading to. But saying that they have a camp somewhere, yes, it is true that some villagers keep saying them passing, but how many these villagers are deep inside the bush. By the time security agencies come across these villagers, some of them are reluctant to give information immediately. So we find out there's a gap between the security agencies and these kidnappers. Well, I think we should do more to be able to track them because of the number of the children involved.
Well, at the risk of belaboring the point, it goes without saying that this seems like a continuous slap on the face of government and of security agencies, you know, particularly the army. There's supposed to be an army formation in that area. First it was Kuriga, where 287 were kidnapped, and then we had another kidnapping, Kajuru, 15, and now 87 in the same Kajuru. Doesn't the army's explanation about how the failure of residents to report this fly in the face of reason if there is no response in terms of, you know, ensuring deterrence of further kidnap in that area? And the latest from the CDS saying that, you know, it is being done to make the authorities look weak. Aren't the authorities, in fact, weak in the face of failure to deter continuous kidnap in that area?
We will be hearing a lot of theories. The military and other security agencies, as a matter of fact, are not magicians. They do not see into the future. If incidents like this happen, they must get quick information to be able for them to react. But whereby these informations come very late, it's difficult for them to respond the way we wanted it to be. So I think information here was really a problem, and I think the communities too should do enough to be able to report incidents like this immediately they happen, so that we will now see the gap between the time of the incident and the response period from the security agencies. But whereby this information do not come early, you find it makes it so difficult to react immediately.
But if it's pardon me, if it's happened before, shouldn't there be a standby force? There is one division, according to what we're told, in that area. So if it's happened before, shouldn't there be a standby force to deter it, to stop it from happening again, or at least nip it in the bud if it's happening again?
Yeah, I agree with you, but the position of the standby force, what is the proximity to where this incident happened? We are still saying the same thing. I think that if they are based in another location and these people come to Kuriga village and carry out this act, there should be information to the security agencies immediately so that they could, since it's a standby force, it's a reactionary force, and they should be informed immediately to react to such situation. It's most unfortunate. Like I said, I belong to the school of thought that said we should do better than what is happening. I think we must rethink about our security design so that we should be able to confront this situation. I think there is a little gap somewhere, and this gap shouldn't be allowed to occur any longer, because too many kidnappings, too many is not too good for us.
So I'd like you to also give us some insight, and I'm sure you have done analysis upon analysis. I mean, I see you with a pen there, so I know even as we're talking, you are still, doing some of that. What are our areas of competency and incompetency such that we know what to focus on? I think the average Nigerian respects the security agencies, and with what we're seeing, it looks like it is eating away at the respect. And I think we need to speak to the issues. What are our areas of competency? Let's commend. But what are those areas we're incompetent in? Is it in terms of manpower, which we've talked about from time to time, which again doesn't make sense to a lot of people? Is it in terms of ammunitions and arms? Is it in terms of strategy? Is it in terms of intelligence? Is it in terms of motivation and welfare? Again, all of these things come together to then impact on the result we see. So what are those areas of incompetency? Again, let us try to deal with it.
I wouldn't be speaking much about how the military evolves, but I can very much speak about the police. And you have just outlined a lot of these problems yourself. Honestly speaking, when crimes like this occur, we must be thinking of putting up a force trained that specializes in countering this type of crime. And when we train these people, what are the motivations? I think each time this issue comes up, I want to agree that the police force have been seriously neglected. Their welfare, their everything about them is not too good. And when this occurs, you cannot motivate a hungry force at all through enemies. You must address every issue. Sophistication. Policing should be technologically driven by now. We lack a lot of these devices in the police force. At this era, I think the police should be able to meet up with the challenges of modern day policing. And this has to do with technology, equipments that they can deploy in the field to be able to assist them in overcoming these issues. But I am afraid, I want to be honest, I don't think we are moving fast towards this direction.
So I'm wondering, this may look like a conjecture or a speculation. I don't know what word would be right for it. Sometimes you wonder, what is the end game of all of this happening? Because it can't just be a coincidence. There seems to be something going on, more like a coordinated chaos, some form of a coordinated chaos. Because when you look at how it happens, the execution, the sequence, the timing. In fact, one KJB agent said that in a long-term plan, when they want to destabilize the country, they start from demoralization, destabilization, they create crisis, they normalize it. More like moving you to a point where you're constantly unstable, but you will never fall. From your point of view, what is going on? It's not a surface level question, even for me, but from the expert point of view, because you guys are in intelligence community, what is really going on?
I think crime is a global issue, and each time it happens in a country, the citizens get apprehensive. But I would agree that this is totally a Nigerian issue. But it's the approach that matters. Are we actually preparing for this crime? Are we putting much on our security agencies to be able to tackle this crime? These are the questions. because we shouldn't have allowed a lot of these incidents to occur at this time, especially that the country is passing through difficult moments and citizens are made to carry the burdens of these situations. I think we should do more, and I think the government must have realized now that there's a lot that needs to be done. For the first time, I saw the state governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Basani, visited the scene immediately. And we see the Chief of Defense Staff also having a meeting with all agencies in some place. That shows the level which I think the state is now taking interest in these situations. Because when they are allowed to happen, it definitely embarrasses the country. And people begin to feel they are no longer protected.
Well, for me, it's still curious as to why Kaduna remains a target, despite hosting a number of our security installations. The Nigerian Defense Academy is, one of them, and yet the state is susceptible to consistent attacks. Either it's in southern Kaduna, Kajuru, Chikun, Breningwari. Doesn't it speak to the strength of our security formations in those security installations? And if you look at the border areas as well, how Kaduna is bordered by so many states. What are those routes, where those bandits find easy entry into Kaduna, and why are the security formations unable to deter such attacks despite hosting these installations?
I happened to be CP Kaduna when I was in service. And when you look at the expanse nature of Kaduna, especially between the Breningwari and some of these communities, like the vast forest, and it's when very thick forest, when these bandits are moving, it's so relatively difficult to detect their movement from the air because it's not an open ground. And you find it, and it's a stretch of land that traverse into even some countries. So you find out that Kaduna is in a position whereby it's easy to have this bandit operate. But however, I don't want to justify this issue. We have a responsibility. Our responsibility as the military and security agency, must come up with measures to forestall this. In particular, like you said, Kaduna is a home of the military. You have the Air Force, the Navy, and then the police high command. So I think we should sit down. There should be a proper synergy between these forces. We should sit down and come up with something different. Because when we are doing things every time and we're not getting results, that means such is not working. We should sit down and come up with a workable solution. And this entails that all the agencies must come together and work as a team. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. When we operate in isolation of each other, it's not going to work. We need to work. We have a common cause here. And the cause is we have an enemy within, and we should be able to crush this enemy, but we must come together as a security force to be able to achieve this end.
Well, it's a no-brainer, really. But we'd like to thank you so much for lending your brain to this conversation, and hopefully we can get one or two things from it, but more importantly, to get the results we want. I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Agiole Abe, the retired Commissioner of Police, former Commissioner of Police in Kaduna State. But that experience is really coming to bear here. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a moment now, and just to tell you that our correspondents are across the country monitoring the strike action from non-academic staff in universities. In fact, let's bring you our correspondent, Eyitokpe Kuteyi, who's been monitoring the situation where he is. And good morning, Eyitokpe.
Oh, good morning.
Walk us through what is going on there, where you are, and the situation.
I can barely hear you, please. Can you come again?
Yeah, go ahead, Itokwe. What is going on there? It's day 2, and I imagine that lots of students are being, can I say, disenfranchised sorts. So walk us through what's going on there.
Okay, good morning. I'm here in the Federal University of Technology, very fruitful. This morning, everywhere is calm. Even the students are trying to find a way to the student classes because this strike is affecting us, is affecting the lecturers, is affecting academic activities. Only non-teaching staff are on strike. And when we talk about non-teaching staff, we're talking about the people that work at the registry, the bursars, the library, the forestry department, the lab, or even the hostel. And this morning I went around and I spoke to some of the students, telling us about how these strikes, the virtual strike, has affected students in the hostels, in the libraries. Some cannot even get access to their laboratories to do their lab assignments. So I think it's really been affecting the students. Some of the students I also spoke to talking about them not being able to do some administrative activities that supposed to do from educate some skills in school and some other things at the forestry department. So you can listen to some of the students I spoke to this morning. Also, yesterday I also spoke to the chairman of SANU, people here, who forced the federal government to not pay SANU members and national members from strike to action.
7 days warning strike that were just started today because of the issues that the federal government have refused to pay the university-based unions that we owe salary. Rather, they decided to do divide and rule by paying only ASU. So SANU and NASU said no to it. If the 4 unions embarked on strike last year and you have decided to pay, no matter how little the money is, we expected that the money should go across all the 4 unions. So, and the report given to us as SANU and NASU is that the money has been approved by the presidency to pay it. Now there are some cabal who are withholding the money.
It's affecting us because yesterday I was trying to see my HOD and the secretary, but I found out they are not around. It was around that 12 o'clock. Plus, my library, I've not yet cleared my library card and stuff, but the place is locked up. Even the hostel, the cleaners and porters won't be able to come, so the students have to be able to tidy up themselves. So it's not good because they are the main people that are assisting the lecturers, the workers, the people that will be in charge of the school.
So I think the government should adhere to their needs, like maybe they are not having salary paid, or maybe they have some other faulty things that are going on in their places of work. I think the government should just adhere to what, for the sake of all students now. So the government should just help them in any way they can, maybe be it money, be it facilities, or be it maybe better equipment in their workspace. That's what I think I'll be.
Our correspondent Itokwe Kutei giving an update from Federal University of Technology, Owerri, which is one of the universities hit by that SANU and NASU strike. Well, we'll keep following the situation. We'd like to thank you, Itokwe, for the update. Please get back to us as soon as you have more. We'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, we'll turn our attention to something that should definitely cheer you up. We all need it, so join us on this one.
I beg, say again some people they behave. Now smoking they take to say person a bad person for this country. My guy get kidney problem. I can't give him my one kidney. That same week when they just do surgery where I donate 1 kidney, I can't see on the smoke cigar. I said, "May they give me my kidney back because you know value one. Me when keep the kidney, you know the smoke on top of them. I be move. I just give you kidney where then they paid since the childhood reach now. I just give you kidney, never reach 5 days. The smoke on top new kidney. Now I just we go do scan my kidney then the brown. Give me my kidney. I know do all those kind of things. Which kind of thing why will be this? But just I give you kidney 5 days, then the smoke on top. Are you kidding me?
You know what they say in literature, life will be totally boring without comedy, right? It's time to unwind and let down the air after all the serious talk. And to help us, have fun doing that, we have joining us Kenneth Oguche, who is also known as Sarkin Dariya. And Kenneth looks very different this morning, different from the man that we just saw tickling us to laughter earlier on. Good morning and welcome, Kenneth, to the Morning Brief on Channels Television.
Good morning.
Good
Thank you
morning.
for having me.
We're so glad to have you. So tell us, first of all, did you get your kidney back?
He has not returned it. He has decided to keep it. He said, I'm taking the matter to public, that we rob ourselves in the gutter. That's some more kidney I give him. The whole world is knowing that I gave him kidney. Something I'm supposed to keep private. But he's misusing the kidney. Me, I decide to pet my kidney. He needed it. I gave him. Now he's misusing the kidney. I don't like the way he's kidding me.
Interesting. It's a good way to start, Kenneth. So talk to us about your trade before we begin to look at how it's thriving in Nigeria's north, where you're based. What informed your foray into this genre?
I'll say my environment first of all, and then the passion for it secondly.
And so how have you honed your skill over the years?
Consistency and putting more work, definitely, and getting to cope with the dynamics as they come and as situations and society change. We blend along with new style of comedy and all of that.
So Sarkin, walk us through how you got here. Okay, it's not a 1 syllable or 2 syllable. I'm sure there's a journey of how you got here. I know you are a historian. I guess that means you studied history in school, and then now you're holding your fort in this area. So walk us through that journey.
Even before I became an historian, I graduated sometime in 2019. That's like 5 years ago. Before then, I've been doing comedy actively for like, I would say 5 years before I went into the university. I've been doing comedy actively over 12 years now. So I'm a professional stand-up comedian who over time I've decided to do content creating because I think it is the new way of reaching the larger audience, since social media is a global village. So aside doing stand-up comedy professionally, I have decided to say, okay, I want to do content creating alongside, and that bettered the Sarkin Dariya brand that is now accepted nationally and globally by the grace of God. Academically, I'm an historian. I used to say, I'm an historian by profession, a comedian by unemployment. So since I couldn't find a work for myself, I had to decide to be very funny. Yes, to be very funny, because things were not so funny with me. So I had to decide to crack joke to make life funny. So it is a taboo for you to meet me and not get laughter. Hence the reason why my name is Sarkin Dariya. Sarkin Dariya is an Hausa word that means king of laughter.
Yeah.
So it is my natural belief that once people come around me or have an encounter with me, they should laugh.
Fantastic. And, you know, you have such a very interesting history in comedy. MC 3310, for those who've been following you and how you've transitioned into what you're at now. So you see, you have a lot of fans, both nationally and globally. But speak to us, let's get deeper into your craft, because you say you're the king of laughter. And you said you're a comedian by unemployment?
Historian by profession.
Historian by profession. And I think that's the story of a lot of Nigerians. You know, you study one thing, but as a result of, you know, the economy, you go into another thing, and they thrive in it. And it just speaks to how, you know, enterprising Nigerians can be. If you could say one hard thing about the work you do, making people laugh, what would it be really? How tough is it to make people laugh? Because it's not an easy job. Some of us have tried comedy. And you end up laughing at your own joke. So how do you, what goes through your mind when you want to make people laugh? How tough can it be to bring up all of that content? And I mean, you made us laugh from the first comment you made. So talk us through your process.
I would say comedy for most comedians is a very intentional thing, and it's a follow-come thing. You know, for somebody like me, from my childhood days, secondary school, I've always known I was going to do comedy. But that didn't stop me from, you know, going for my academic sojourn and all of that. So comedy, making people laugh is a very serious business. And for every professional business, for every professional comedian rather, we take the business of making people laugh very serious. Making people laugh has become business because it's putting food on my table. So I take it very serious. So you will not pay me to make you laugh and then I come around joking about it, even though my work is to joke. So when I come, I just must deliver.
Speaking of delivering, particularly amid these very challenging times, you know, people would tell you, look, I cannot go out, you know, for any show because, you know, to consider transportation in the first place that would take you to a place of concert, to a club, to a comedy night out. How is the trade thriving, not just for you now, but, you know, generally in the part of the country where you are?
Well, I would say for somebody like myself and a lot of us who are in this part of the country, the north, the comedy trade has not, you know, gained acceptance like that as it is elsewhere in the country. I would say particularly in the west. So we have designed our own style of comedy that can be accepted by our people here, and as well to, you know, project we from the north that yes, people in the north also can accept joke and find things funny. You know, the current economic challenge and all of that definitely makes a lot of people, like you say, don't find things funny anymore. That is why the social media has become my quick tool to letting people know that despite all the challenges and all that we're facing, there's still a reason for us to laugh. So I've decided to do a style of comedy on social media that I call comic activism, alongside with my band, the Kwaro Band. So I designed a pattern for myself, the Sarkin Dariya, where people see me and know I am from the north. So if I have to do comedy, I just must speak our own northern reality. And so that is what I've chosen to do. It's not so easy for people, but once I'm able to gather these numbers and figures on my social media, it will be easy for me to transform them to live reality audience. You know, when I have to do my shows or do tour around the north and everywhere like that, just like every other comedian in the different parts of the country who have tried to take comedy beyond Nigeria. Myself and a host of us who are from the northern extraction have done same. It means gradually we're penetrating into the market on a national scale and continentally.
Oh, so what would creatives do without the social media? Speaking of which, let's see you do your thing, you know, from one of the posts that you have shared, and then we'll be right back to continue this conversation.
For this country where food, you know, now you rush, they wake up. As you don't rush, wake up, now wait till you go eat. Food, you know, they rush, wake up. Something where you go sleep, pretend like say sleep still they worry you. Wake up around 11. Before you know, to 12 that kind, you can't do morning devotion, pretend like say food is not really your problem. You know, that kind of wisdom. Before you know, you go eat morning food for afternoon. Then you can say, I know be just now eat. Before you know, you go eat afternoon around 6. Before they don't finish. Now, this country now, to eat be like West Code 101. The last time when some people see breakfast for this country now, since Tinubu entered government, the last time some people see breakfast now, their girlfriend tell them say they no do again. Hey, when see breakfast, yeah, you go they rush the wake up with kind of risky they take like that. You won't kill yourself.
But Sarkin, Dariya, is that a good counsel? You know, people need to wake up early in these times so that they can go, you know, get the means to putting food on their tables.
But what about people who don't have work? You know, one of the law of dialectical materialism I was taught in school is that it is when a man eats food that he can work. So how about a man that has not enough food to eat? How does he work? Now man when chop go work, and as well now man when work go chop. So it's a two-way thing. So if there's nothing to eat in the morning, don't just rush and wake up like that. You are taking a risk. You want to take your own life. So you just use time, sleep a bit, and wake around 11 a.m. Before you know, you now do like you want to brush. 12 don't reach. Time for lunch. You now eat breakfast. Time for lunch. Like that, you just go about your activities. Say, I know be just now eat. Before you know, 6 p.m. you eat lunch 6 p.m. They don't finish. You don't run on 101 or 011 cost code like GST.
So what time do you now have to go and look for the money you need to eat the remaining part of the food for the day?
Work day now they do comedy. If there's work, I will not be doing this. You think I don't like to sit in the office and wear suit every morning?
I bet you don't like to. I bet you don't like to sit in the office. Again, it's your calling. You said it's follow come. That's what you said. So obviously sitting in the office will be like punishment for you. And I'd love to actually experiment with that. Let's give Sarkin Dariya a job for a week and see the look on his face. I'm sure it will be sad, like sitting in the office. And it just speaks to, you can respond to that, by the way.
You can respond.
No, if there's a department for cracking joke for staff, I definitely will want to take the job. Gather the staffs in the morning, crack joke for them. At least that was what I was doing in my secondary school days as an assembly prefect. I'll gather the students in the morning, crack joke for them and all that to make their day. So I set a tone for the day and all that. So imagine if there's a department in Channels Television now where every morning we gather the staff and make them laugh, their day will be made.
I'd love that. Maybe we'll work on creating that office. But you know, some of your elements also speak to reality. I mean, you've talked about government. I think at some point you almost got into trouble, you know, but hey, it's your work. You can use satire, comedy to speak to real life issues. So how has it been really for you when you use comedy and you touch on issues and people come for you and say, no, why are you being political? You didn't say this and that and that. How do you handle all of that?
Comedy, just like music, has this different genre. Everybody has a reason why they are doing comedy. And you just must have your own style of comedy. Like I mentioned earlier, my own style of comedy, I as an historian, I told myself I was going to do comic activism. That is employing satire when I have to address any issue. You know, elsewhere in the world, people like Dave Chappelle, the Chris Rock, maybe on a continental level, Trevor Noah and all that, has been able to use comedy as a tool for correcting societal ill, for talking on topical issues that can affect or change the narrative about subject matter that would better the people. So if I have comedy as a tool, that is my own way of, you know, commenting and contributing to national development. You know, I must say, sometimes I have dared to talk about some things that look like they were, it was not going to add up. Eventually, those things, there were changes made, maybe from the part of the government and all that. It means they see these complaints we make. Some time ago, I talked about the case of one chance and kidnap in the FCT, where I had to call the current Minister of FCT, His Excellency Nyesom Wike. I had to call him and I said, let this video get to him. because it is necessary. And then I started to give a narrative of how police has to be very conscious at the checkpoint, things they were doing before that they are no longer doing, that is now affecting us security-wise and all that. Though I might be employing comedy as a means to pass the information and all that, but people have gotten the message. That is the essence of it. That is what my own style of comedy is all about. We through the means of trying to make you laugh, get you to get the message. And the best of message are passed when people are laughing. And so that's why comedy is a major tool. It's not just long before now they used to see comedians as people. These people are not people they should take serious. But now people take us serious because it is an industry. It's an industry that is, you know, changing a lot and creating jobs for people who ordinarily do not have. Somebody like myself who is a comedian by
unemployment, right?
So just Bukola, just a minute. So I'm wondering, comedy, for a lot of people who may not know, takes a lot of intelligence because it's also part of social commentary, which is what you have deployed as an artist in that area, in that creative space. So for you, is there any, maybe we don't have the luxury of looking at all the things you have done in terms of, I watch you on social media, but are there comments or skits you have done that speaks to the current situation in terms of the economy? How did you relay that for those who haven't seen it?
Yes, definitely. I have loads of them. For those who follow me on social media or those who are my ardent follower, would definitely know that is what I do best. I have them. I do music comedy. I do stand-up comedy. I do skits. And each time I have to just do, it just must pass message. If it's not passing message, I'm not just all about having the views sometime or getting it go viral. But I just do something that is about the current reality and all that. If hunger is the in thing we're talking about, I just must do a skit around hunger to bring to the notice of the government that we are really suffering. Or at least me that is closer to the people in the street than you that is up there in the government. Me, I'm bringing it to you through the tool of social media, which is now the closer means of getting to you people. That we suffer. There's hunger. I did a recent one where I made a parody of Kiss Daniel's song featuring the video Twe, me and my band. I just had to, you know, do that. And it had a lot of views, and of course, one way or the other, it just must find its way into the phones of the people who are the suzerain of affair in the country and all that. So that is it for me. So I have loads of them and different kinds of work and all that. You know, I did not just start now. I think my major break happened from just doing stand-up comedy during the Corona era, where the whole palliative thing and all of that, people really suffering. Myself, I was part of those who suffered, you know, the setback during the Corona era. I had to come outside to do a parody of the Michael Jackson song, and it went viral. I got a lot of calls, both from Nigeria, on the continental, and even from, you know, abroad and all of that. You know, people asking me what was the current situation, and it was a major break for me. So I told myself, okay, if I could do this, and people are calling me from as far as the US, the UK, Russia, and all of that, then I could also use this as a way of, you know, getting the information out every time there's need to do that.
Speaking of this parody, maybe this would be the perfect time, you know, to amplify it and ensure that it gets to those who should watch it and get the message. Let's take it, and then we'll be right back to put some more questions through to you. Let's have that parody now.
Sarkin Dariya, wani bandin da sabin su kwas, doya kwas, rice kwas, noitin techo, ebon banana, noi bilai di shega kodada, oyoyo, bona bi roshi gwada bot nan zaman ga noi biyo, so web no be smoting one year be like a boat. Whether you tall or you short, Togo ona buntu, you fight to boy with Silong, Orobo Kwana Ilepa, whether Ibo or Hausa, Yoruba or Night TV, the Ongana together, she's a flow for everybody like it, wait, she No block body twist. She's a block body twist. Oh yeah, block body twist.
You know, that is certainly therapeutic to ease the stress, you know, and make light of these serious issues. But your deployment of, you know, satire to pass the message, the socioeconomic challenges and, you know, politics across, I wonder if it limits the space of your reach in terms of platforms of expression, you know, for you to perform, particularly because you operate from the federal capital, where really you should be getting a number of jobs. I wonder if you catch my drift. You get those calls, you know, to perform at those platforms where the senators are, or because of your outlook, does it limit the opportunities that come your way?
It does not. Even though sometimes I suffer it a lot when some people want to book me for event. They say, this boy, make it no come, we can't talk to a guy like this and all of that. But sometimes I bust their bubble when I just come, I do my thing professionally and just leave. I have the means for getting the information to you, which is the social media. So when I'm doing stand-up comedy or I'm anchoring event as a compere, I just stay true to the job and do it professionally and leave. So sometimes when I even talk without the artistic accent that I use as my own style of comedy, they are so surprised. So there are different sides to me. As a matter of fact, I am a polyglot who enjoys speaking in multiple languages and all that. So I just find the Hausa speaking tribe and artistic accent a more convenient way rather for communicating my own style of comedy. Of course, I'm in Abuja here, the seat of power, but that doesn't mean I don't get the job. I can boldly say I'm arguably one of the most booked comedians. There you go. Because the reason is this: you might not get the senators, the ministers and all to get you come do a job for them, but you are not losing the people. You know, once the people are behind you, it is greater than those in power. How many number of persons are senator? But imagine having over 200 million Nigerians as your fan base. That is big enough than maybe 50,000 who are just the minute part of the population that are in power.
And I love that perspective, really. Just that video you did, barely how many days, almost has 500,000 views. You see thousands of shares, thousands of likes and the rest. And it speaks to the point you're making exactly about that. So fantastic. Keep doing that. But that artistic, you're welcome. The artistic, what will I call it now? The accent that you have. A lot of people love it. So, I mean, a lot of people hear the Hausa accent, but it's like your own has another layer of Sarkin Dariya to it. So, in answering the next question, I want you to answer it with that accent, your artistic accent. Is it a must for comedians to pass through shege? Pass through tough times before you become a comedian? Because the content is usually, I suffered in the past. So is that a prerequisite to becoming a comedian in Nigeria? Must you suffer like your early part of life and then you now use that to do comedy?
You know, as a person, if there's no hunger for anything, you will not deliver at it. So when hungry beat you as a comedian, once you are doing the job, you are doing it in such a way that you don't want to go back hungry. So you must do it so that hungry will not beat you for the second time. It is very correct that not all comedians went through shege, like you said. But for me, it's not like I went through shege. I only went through shege banza. Me, I went through the Pro Max. So there's every reason why I just must do well in the comedy, because I can't afford to go back to seeing the shege I saw. So that is just basically, but not like every comedian went through shege. But it's just a process and a phase in life. It is the same thing with every profession. You don't just, as a doctor, you don't just come and you just come here like that. You must start from somewhere and all that. So you must start from that early phase where it's not so good, where it's rough, but staying true to the job and being consistent at it, you definitely attain your peak.
All right, Sarkin, there's something you didn't do that Kayode asked, and I'm going to ask a question so you do it. let's talk about this, your Shege Banza, this Shege Pro Max. Use your accent, the accent we're familiar with. You know, this is the classy one. The one we're familiar, I'm not saying that one is not classic, by the way. The one we're familiar with, use it to describe the Shege Banza, maybe an experience growing up.
Okay, so it starts like this. Work soaps. My name is Sarkin Dariya. You see, in life, if you must do well, when you have an opportunity to do a job for yourself, make sure that you do it very well so you don't go back to suffering. Like now, making you laugh is my hobby, not because I loved it, but because it's putting food on my table, I have decided to make it my hobby. And this is the only job I'll be doing, kwata. So every time you see me get ready to make you laugh, don't expect me to be serious. As a comedian, we are not known to be serious. Everything I will tell you here is a joke. Are you with me now? So I want to tell you about Nigerians basically before we wrap up the program. Nigerians are very unique. Do you know that the Igbo people in this country are too like God? See, Igbo people, they name children, Chi must be their name, and Chi for Igbo means God. That is why all Igbo names are like Chi, Olu, Chi, Di, Chi, Amaka, Chi, Nagwadam, Chi, Dube, Chi, Naza, Chi, Som, Chin, Chi, they don't name. But I love Hausa kind of name. Hausa people, we name you according to your future. If Hausa man, you see that you are going to get money when you grow up, your name is like Dan Tata, Dangote, Dalami, Dasuki, Atiku, Abdurrahman, Abdusalam. Sometimes Buhari, not all the time. But if Hausa man name you Musa Getaman, Adamu, Merwa, Elias, Mesuya, Suleiman, Shoemaker, Mumu, see, this thing is a joke. But I love Yoruba kinds of name. Yoruba people in this country, they just name you as you look. If you are tall, you are taller. You are short, you are shola. You have Kele, Kelani, Bo leg, Bola, big head, Uriade, long neck, Nike. You have long titi. Your teeth is very long, titi layo. You have rashes on your body as you get Rashida, Rashid. You do the peace for bed to Ibu. They give you Tinubu, you will be president. I just had to say the last one for security reasons. Because na smoking person they take go freezing.
Yo. But a lot of people want to hear you in your now English without the accent. Is there a Sarkin Dariya that just speaks English in 30 seconds? Just wrap up the show. Let them hear that you studied history and international relations as well.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Trust me, everything I've just done is just a tip of an iceberg. I've got a lot of works that will be rolling out this year. As a matter of fact, I've got my tour happening in the entire northern states, starting from Abuja, April 13 at the Congress Hall, Transcorp Hilton. I'll be doing Kano, I'll be doing Plateau State, Jos, I'll be doing Lafia in Nasarawa, I'll be doing Sokoto, Gombe, and all of that. And so I look forward to having people come and enjoy comedy from a comedian who is based in the North, who is changing the narrative. You know, people perceive us in the North as people who do not take joke, but I've got jokes that people in the North take. I am the king of laughter.
Sarkin Dariya.
Kind. Sarkin Dariya.
Thank you so much, Sarkin Dariya, for lighting up the atmosphere and giving us that opportunity to laugh. Thank you so much. And you have our best wishes in the pursuit of comic activism, your trade because of unemployment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and we look forward to another opportunity. And that's how it's been on the show today. A good way to anchor it. Join us again tomorrow when we bring you another bumper package. I am Bukola Kuka.
Thank you so much, Ash. I'm sure this very last segment is lightened your day. Make sure you take it across the day. I'm Jeffrey Zona.
Well, Sunrise Daily is next couple of minutes. Stay with us. I'm Kyle. Goodbye.